One thing I would say to all SMEs and anybody looking at their business is focus heavily on the things that you're really good at, because somebody can help you with the things that you're not good at. And I think we tend to try and fix that 1% as opposed to building on the 99%. But the bit that I wanted to do, because I think it worked really well with Jamal, is actually open it up to questions rather than me telling you all about what I think you should be doing, because I think I'm learning more than you may be.
Any questions? If we wait for the microphone to arrive, because we're live streaming the questions, and then like that they can. Good.
Hi. Is that working?
It's.
I think is that right? Anyway, yeah. So we work with lots of different partners. Not really anyone as big as Cisco. But just out of curiosity, how should young entrepreneurs with relatively new businesses go about approaching senior people at large multinational companies? You know, my business partner over here went into money saving expert with a box of donuts and got us a meeting, but that doesn't necessarily scale. You know, obviously LinkedIn is an approach which can just go over people's heads. So is there any, other than events like this, of course, anything you would suggest about how to, you know, form early effective partnerships with, you know, key people?
I think you've got to find the influence point, because I think often you think it may just be the CEO that you need to go straight to. And often those individuals don't have the capacity to respond to everybody. So finding the influence point. LinkedIn is a very good way of contacting businesses, because if you look through LinkedIn, the profile that you see is really about their role, their job, what they do, what they're going to do. As opposed to Twitter. I mean, Jamal said it, you know, my Twitter account will be about the SME market, it will be about inclusion and diversity, it will be a mix of things, so it can be quite confusing. But actually LinkedIn shows you what I do as a job, and reaching out. And I always find that it's that thing about asking. If you don't ask, you're not going to get. And James said it really eloquently. And you'd be surprised, I don't think business leaders get approached enough. I think a lot of business leaders think that their profiles are out there and people will just contact them. And you guys are going, I bet they get contacted by lots of people. And actually that's not quite true. And so you want to reach out to them. And I always say to people, the worst thing that can happen is they'll say no. But I tend to find that many business leaders may say, I can't help you, but I know somebody who can. And I think we have to go back to that mantra and that ethos of just asking and not being afraid that you might get told no. I know that lots of people at Cisco, for example, tend not to say no. And it's not they just go yes to everybody, but they usually will direct you to individuals that can help you. And so I'm really happy to help you in that space as well. But I would ask and not fear the no, because eventually you will get a yes. There's going to be somebody out there who has a passion around young people. There's going to be somebody who has a passion around your business. And leaders are always happy to go out and provide their experience, not just because they want to share their experience and they think they've got all the answers, but a lot of the times we're learning along the way as well. And, you know, just because you become a leader or, you know, whatever the definition is, or you become somebody senior in a corporation, your learning never stops. It's always continuous.
You have the microphone just.
Hi, I was wondering, to follow up from the question, because we learned from James that you almost have to be rebellious to kind of get things done. But in school and in corporates, you kind of have to follow the norm. I'm an asker, and last year, like 4 of my projects got no's. And I was almost wondering if our current society, like corporates, would they welcome entrepreneurialism, or do you have to just go out and be an entrepreneur? Is that the only way? Because you do have to coexist, right? SMEs with large corporates to have an innovative world. So, I mean, how do you address that?
Yeah, I can speak from Cisco's point of view on this. You know, in terms of one of the ethos that we have is empowerment. And I always say that we're entrepreneurs. Within the corporation, you can be an entrepreneur. We have lots of people who do things on top of their jobs that is about passion and something they're interested in. And I think that you have to find a way of coexisting. And it's sad that you've got those 4 no's, but you have to keep going. And corporations tend to sometimes say no, not because they're standoffish, it's because sometimes they get lots of requests, and we have to find the right channels. And it's an interesting point and something to explore about how do we create a forum and how do we create a way of young SMEs, SMBs, micro SMEs to engage with corporations. And it's an interesting one on how to do it, but I think it's if you're looking at it from an internal point of view, and you're saying that maybe you should give it up and then go and work in a corporation, I think you have to pick the right place. You have to pick the right place with the right culture and the right ethos to be entrepreneurs, and take that experience as well. But I don't know the answer to the question about how do you marry those 2 up, but I'd be more than happy to sit down and we can look at how we can do that, because I think there is a way of doing that. And there is a way of working together that maybe not being explored at the moment.
I have a question, sorry to interrupt where you go. It's more about your transition into digital leadership. As if I'm correct, you actually studied English literature at university, is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how did you manage to get from English literature to being such an inspiration in the digital space?
Gosh, so let's be really honest. I did English literature and language because I thought it was really cool and I like reading. And I hadn't at the time thought, what am I going to do next? I never, unlike you guys, and by the way, you are all very inspiring, I never thought I could go and, set my own business up. My aim at the time was I want a job. I just wanted a job. Now, when I was at university, if you had a degree, you're pretty much guaranteed you got a job at the end of it. That's not the way the world works anymore. And so I basically, I think like you, I had some tenacity to just keep asking an organisation that was close to my home for a job. And I actually started packing boxes in a distribution centre, even with that, with the English literature and language degree. And to be fair, I wanted to be a journalist and writer and discovered I couldn't do either. So I kind of took that degree, had some fun at university, begged a technology company to just give me a job, and I started packing boxes in a distribution centre. It doesn't sound very much fun, does it? But it was really good fun. And then, and this is what I talk about in terms of entrepreneurship, I just asked and asked and asked and asked and asked people to take a chance on me. So I transitioned into, I left university on the Friday, I had a job on Monday with the same company I kept going back to. I then went to the head office, decided I was really keen on marketing, then started realising I was very structured and linear, so operations became a role. I spent 10 years at the first company, who was Symbol and then Motorola, and then decided to take a punt on Cisco. And went to work. In fact, I went to Cisco to actually market telepresence and data center. And within 6 months discovered I wasn't really a technologist. Whilst I love digital, I wasn't a technology person. Did marketing in public sector. And I guess some of it is, the rest was history. On the basis that every time an opportunity came up, I put my hand up because I wanted to learn something different. So the job I have now is my first sales role, managing a very large team. And I took the step to go, do you know what, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I've done marketing, I've done operations, I've done business management, I've done strategy, I'm going to try sales. And it's scary. And I always say to young people, do something every day that makes you scared. Just a little bit scared to do something. So it may be that you want to ask somebody a question, you're a bit worried about it, approaching them. But do something that scares you, because if I go in and I do a job that I can do, I know that it won't be from a place of passion or a place of motivation. The country digitisation stuff, I knew nothing about what that meant originally. But that was another, I'm going to do something that I don't have a understanding on, and I will learn it. And I think that's the other thing. Just make sure you keep learning. Even, Jamal said it, even when you think you've made it, there's something new that comes out and there's something new that you want to learn. I mean, secret cinema, I've never heard of secret cinema. So you're always learning and realizing that there are different things you can do. And then I became very passionate around the digital because I looked around the tech industry in terms of the number of women, in terms of the number of the diversity in tech industry. It's a well-known fact, isn't great. And so I became very passionate about trying to pull people into it. I'm from an Indian background and most of my family are in finance. And that's not a stereotype, it's just they're in finance. And I wanted to I'm trying to get some of my nieces and nephews to understand that digital and technology is a way forward and a great career as well.
What's the biggest challenge in your job, and what's the part of the job that you love the most?
Let me start with the love, because the love is people. The bit that I love about my job is the variety of people that I meet, the team that I have. I couldn't do my job without my team. They are incredibly passionate people. They have skill sets that I don't have. They are tenacious, they are driven, and they watch my back. They look after me and I look after them, and I think that's the bit that I love. And I'm a real people person. I spend most of my days talking to people. Unfortunately, that means I do lots of emails at night as well. But actually, the people piece is what I love. So the idea that you could do everything digital doesn't work for me because I need to talk to people. I think the bit that's challenging is sometimes it gets too much, and sometimes you can be so passionate about lots of things. And I'm definitely guilty of that. I mean, if you said, what are my passions? I'd say women in tech, I'd say kids in coding, I'd say digital, I'd talk about mental health, a whole bunch of things. And sometimes it gets too much. And I think if I was to give you one piece of advice about that too much, is sometimes just slow down. So I've got a big birthday coming up. 21, no. Big birthday coming up in July, and I was going to do, let's give it away now, I was going to do a 40 before 40 list. I think I've done about 10, but I'm so tired already. And I was going to do a triathlon, a super sprint triathlon. The problem I have is that my swimming is terrible, and to do that in open lakes. So yesterday, or I think it was the weekend, I made a decision to drop it because the idea to do it before I'm 40, it just rushes you and it puts pressure on you. And sometimes you have to take a step back and slow down. And you need to kind of, I mean, I don't know if anyone does mindfulness here, but you do need to take that, block out the noise. So I would say sometimes you just need to slow down and prioritize what makes you happy and prioritize what keeps you calm. I've got a 5-year-old son as well, so I've got that in terms of passion. So I would say slow down sometimes, and that's the bit I loathe because I want to do everything, and that's not possible.
But do you find that sometimes it can switch because you can be so passionate about so many things, you have all these big dreams, and then that puts so much pressure on you, you stop enjoying all of it? Yeah, totally.
I mean, you want to be passionate about stuff, and you want to do everything, and you want to make a difference in the world, and then you realise that it's just a task. And when it becomes a task, that's when you need to stop. And so for me, that super sprint triathlon was becoming a task. I needed to prove something to myself. And in the end, I went, do you know what? I'm just not going to do that. It takes the pressure off me. It's 4 weeks away, and I can't even swim a length yet. So takes the pressure off me, and I feel calm. Right? And it doesn't help. And there's something, and those of you who do have children or who do go to, have mortgages and all that kind of fun stuff that we do, I always say when you put that key in that door and before you turn it, you need to know who you're going to be when you get home. Because if you bring your baggage with you from work, it's not a healthy environment. So before you, whether it's a key or before you open the door to that client, understand who you want to be before you walk in.
Hema, I was also wondering, what's your take on whether technology actually is a help or hindrance to managing teams, especially in the global space that most of us are tending to work in nowadays?
Yeah. So I think it's a massive help, and I'm a big convert at the moment. So we launched a platform called TeamSpace. It's a tool that's been developed by Marcus Buckingham. He talks about standout assessment, which is a strength-based profiling of you rather than here are all the things that are wrong with you. And it can help because when you've got a large team and you desperately want to stay connected to them, but phone calls can be difficult and you're out all the time and you're seeing clients, the fact is that I can go into TeamSpace on a weekly basis. They put what they're going to do in the week, what they love and what they loathe. And those are the words that we use, love and loathe. Not what are your development areas, what are your challenges, just love and loathe. What do you love and what do you loathe? And I see that coming in, and I see that from a technology point of view, it gives me a platform, another platform I know, but it takes 5 minutes for me to check it out, look at it, look at the trends in the team, look at what's going on with them, and I can respond really quickly. That doesn't take away from the face-to-faces or the conversations, but it gives you a platform to help you manage the time and your capacity to manage time as well. So I think technology can be a real help. And, you know, we have a theory in Cisco's ethos is work, you know, anytime, anywhere. You know, I could go into a Starbucks and work in Starbucks, you know, from a coffee shop. I can use WebEx, which is a tool that we have, a conferencing centre. Telepresence is a fantastic way of connecting to teams when they're so remote because it gives you that face time without having to travel. Because if you're doing a 2-hour meeting and somebody's got to travel 5 hours to get to you, it just doesn't make sense. It's not productive. It's not good for your well-being either to travel that kind of distance. So I think technology can definitely be a help, but I think you need to balance it with the face-to-face and make sure you don't go all technology because, you know, if you sit on a WebEx conferencing call all day for 12 hours, you're definitely not focused and you're definitely not concentrating. So you need to mix that up, the technology with the face-to-face.
I had a question. And so clearly, obviously, your busy job at Cisco, young family, you obviously are also on boards and community groups on a work basis. How do you sort of basically do justice to those institutional things that you're passionate about, especially groups? And what are some of the challenges on maybe personal goals as to how you would proceed with that?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was talking to my husband the other day. So 10 years ago when we got married, I would wake up at 11 o'clock on a Saturday. It was so much fun. I would be drinking on a Friday. I would then do nothing on a Sunday and then complain I had no time. I now have a really busy job. I'm managing a team, I have a child, I'm sat on boards, I do events like this, and I sometimes think that I don't get what was wrong with the time previously, and suddenly I can do this, and then I go running, and then I go to the gym. And I think it's the balance. So to my point, you have to then look at all of that, where you're saying yes, 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 and occasionally you have to say no. And you have to say, this is a really interesting initiative. And some of it's about paying it forward. There will be lots of people that work in your organisation who also want to experience these things. And so giving that opportunity to somebody else is also as fulfilling as doing it yourself. And finding somebody who's passionate to do that. Some of the boards that you mentioned, so the Digital Apprentice Board, I have given that to the apprentice manager. That's her passion. And I know she's going to do a great job because actually you have to take a step back and go, it's my turn to pay it back, pay it forward.
Any more? Can we wait until the microphone arrives?
So you talked about some new ventures and products which Cisco are launching, but as a larger organisation, what do you think the biggest barriers are when you're launching a new digital product into the market?
Yeah, do you know, it's an interesting question. It's how do we get it out to the market? It's how do we get it to the right channels and the right organisations and the right companies. So we have a number of products that are very focused around the SME market, for example. So we have Spark and we have Umbrella, which is a security-based product, and we have WebEx and we have Meraki. And it's actually how do you get that to the customer that isn't just a product and that provides them something that helps them solve their problem. So I think the challenge that we have is our portfolio is very rich and it's very diverse. It's how do you get the right messages into the right customer base. So I was saying earlier, you know, we sit there and think most of the decision making in this market has been made before anybody talks to us. But actually there are different levels. So it may be that the micro businesses need more time to talk to us about what we can offer versus the SME market, which might make a decision before they get to us. And I always say it's only easy if you know who they are. So telepresence is something not a lot of people will know about. It's a video conferencing system, but it literally is like glass between you. And so it's the challenge is how do you create the right messages and how do you get to the right customer base, because that can get quite confusing depending on the research that you get.
Can we wait for the microphone, please?
So earlier you were talking about the tools that you use to help you as a manager with a global team. But what I wanted to know was, thinking about your team as a whole, how do you, with them being so far away and there being so many people, how do you keep kind of a one team kind of atmosphere and also keep the company culture?
Yeah, so interesting, there's a couple of things. One is a tool. So we have a tool called Spark, and Spark is a communication collaboration platform that allows you to chat, share files, share data, share pictures, all sorts of things on your phone. And we're going to create that for this group so that we can stay connected after the event as well. So there's that bit, there's the easy communication and making it easy for people to kind of get hold of you as well. And I am a bit, I mean, I do say to people that if I'm with Harry, my son, then, you know, we need to have a respect of I'm with him, so I need to be present. But I, honestly, after 8 o'clock, anyone could call me. I mean, my phone's on 24 hours a day. The other thing is just recognizing, using the tools and the technologies when people are tired and when people are feeling drained. And so we do a lot of really good things at Cisco. So one of the things that's coming up is Wellbeing Day. So I've asked the team, why don't we all go into the office? Why don't we all go and have a picnic? And why don't we all just chill out and talk about stuff? And you have to do that. You know, it can't just be everything's about work. Everything's constantly about work. And so I would say that, you know, on a daily basis, it's just making sure you're connected. And where you've got some free time, you can pick up the phone as well and just say to people, how are you? And it is very basic things, but you'd be surprised how many people forget to just say, how are you? And the other thing is that when there is a trend, and actually the technology kind of shows me when people are writing what they love and loathe, to do something about it. Don't just say, oh, I'm really sorry you're tired and I'm sure it will get better. Do something about it, give something back. So I'd say those are the two things that I do.
Thank you. One last question.
You talked about entrepreneurship, which is actually a phrase I've heard before from Eric Ries from the Lean Startup. He talks about creating an entrepreneurial environment at large multinational businesses like Cisco. Obviously, as kind of another question that alluded to, you're going to be faced with some obvious barriers, which is just the inefficiency of large companies. How much of your attention do you dedicate to removing or lowering those inefficiencies? Because as entrepreneurs, like true scrappy entrepreneurs, our lives have got very different, and we've got to find a lot of shortcuts. You know, it must be tempted to just, you know, with the large budgets and large sort of a microphone that Cisco has, to kind of go the easy route. So do you dedicate your time and attention to kind of being like actual proper entrepreneurs?
Yeah, and you know what? We all start small and scrappy as well when we first have an idea. And what tends to happen is that somebody's got an idea, it starts a bit small and scrappy, then suddenly there's a movement, and lots of people are involved. So one of the really fantastic things that we have as a tool, and we have a lot of tools, and I know I'm saying we've got lots of tools, but they do work because they attract different people, is we have a platform called Innovate Everywhere, and the Innovate Challenge, and people are putting in their ideas to solve a problem, and there's prizes that are given out, and people are given, you know, the right to own that idea, and people vote on it, and the company does that globally. So we do a lot of that, but we also do a lot from a passion point of view. So some of the other things that I still count as entrepreneur that may not be related to a product or a solution are things like, for example, mental health. So mental health is a big stigma. There's a lot of work being done, and at Cisco it took one individual to create a movement, and I always call it a movement. She took the initiative to talk about it. She herself came back from having problems. She was very brave, very courageous to talk about it. And now, about a year, 18 months later, we have an employee group around mental health. We have around 40 to 50 mental health first aiders. And that was born from somebody saying, this is really important. And we also have, employee groups around connected women. We have employee groups around disability, around autism, Asperger's. We have so many of those, and those are usually born out from passion. So I would say that we can start a bit scrappy, and some of the bigger ones like Innovate Challenge and the Innovate Everywhere, because they're very specific. And by the way, they're not always product related. They could be a social reason for doing it. Start small and then grow, and then we'll have employee groups that are passionate about something kind of subject, and they'll grow that in pockets of people. In fact, yesterday I was presenting about inclusion and diversity. We call it inclusion collaboration because we talk about the power of participation. And I stood there for ages because I could just list hundreds and hundreds of things that we're doing. And that feels scrappy, but actually it drives communities, it drives a culture that is much more open and transparent and authentic and gets people to talk together. I didn't know anything about mental health 18 months ago, and here I am, I'm a first aider now. And it's just interesting how many people may be suffering anxiety and stress. So it's passion, and sometimes it can start scrappy and then turn into a platform.
Good. Well, thank you very much for this very insightful talk and all the tools. As you mentioned, we're going to be creating we're using the Spark tool as well, yes, so that we can, everyone who came today can collaborate and keep in touch and see how it works as well. And it's very good that we ended this talk speaking about mental health and well-being at work and technology, because it relates closely to the next speaker, which Jamal is going to be introducing and leading the session as well. So thank you.